Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. Quick video today on Max Verstappen. Despite being very young in his career, he's certainly talking about the possibility of retiring it from Formula 1 over the coming years when his Red Bull contract comes to a close, saying that if he's not enjoying it so much in the future, he may well look to move into endurance racing. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty of stuff to mention. Of course, Norris has been in a similar discussion, right? He of course has signed that pretty lengthy contract with McLaren up until I believe 2024, 2025 I think it might be, and as he says here, of course some people have been criticising him because the car is not competitive right now. He's not going to be able to win races really with the way that the championship currently sits, and also not be able to of course win the World Drivers' Championship. Still, long career ahead of him, but you look at the fact that Verstappen has signed a contract to 2028 with Red Bull, and then Norris has another long-term deal with McLaren. He says he's playing a long-term game rather than a short-term game. Maybe that means that he expects McLaren to improve and says that his team is very good, or whether he's playing the long-term game as in wait for Hamilton to retire and try and get the Mercedes seat, right? That's of course maybe a question that could be coming around as well. So of course there's been some critique of this, but no one's really critiquing Verstappen's move because like it makes a fair bit of sense, right? This guy's going to sign there to 2028. The team has been competitive the last couple of years, probably will continue to be. Whether it remains a championship winning car though is another question, because Verstappen has very clearly said, we'll see here in a second, he absolutely hates not being at the front of the pack, and if he's not there on a consistent basis, if he's in kind of an Alonso situation, he'd just prefer to go and race in another series. This also, Max was kind of in the news largely because of his dad, right, and was talking once again the fact that like his dad never told him he was going to be a world champion. He said he was going to be a truck driver or a bus driver, which you know, I don't know, it's kind of crazy that like the upbringing that Verstappen's had, that he's kind of as headstrong and as you know, mentally strong as he actually is, right, which I think is very impressive because yeah, it does not sound like good parenting to me, but you know, there's many other examples of this, not just this particular quote. Now this is a quote that comes out yesterday. He was Max Verstappen was talking to Eric van Haren over at the Telegraph in the Netherlands, and well, the article is right here, you guys can check it out, I'll leave a link down below. This is kind of the key translation here, right? He's already thinking, apparently, Max Verstappen, despite only being 24 right now, thinking about the end of his career. Of course, he started at the age of 17, he's been going quite some time, and says that he might actually quit at the end of 2028. By then, I will have been driving in Formula 1 for a while. It depends a little bit on whether the car is still good and I'm still competing for prizes, wins, championships, that type of stuff. I can't stand having to do my laps in the back. I'd rather drive in another class, but at the moment, I wouldn't want to drive for any other team. So, you know, if I feel good somewhere and it works, why change, as he says, for now? But it's interesting that he's actually considering like what he wants to do after Formula 1, maybe when his contract ends in 2028. And as he says, it's kind of funny really, he has one race where he's fighting in the midfield with Mick Schumacher for P7, and he's like, no, I'm never doing this again, never send me back here, like, you know, he just can't stand not being at the front. And he says that if I'm in that situation, I'd rather drive in another class. So he's only 24 right now. Of course, in 2028 he'll be, you know, 30, 31, something along those lines. Of course, look, who knows what happens at that point. Let's say we get to, you know, he's 31 or whatever, he's been dominating Formula 1 the last few years. Let's say he's like a 4-time world champion at that point, maybe he's a 5-time world champion, maybe he's surpassed some of you know, Vettel's records, for example, at Red Bull. Then he's thinking, okay, what do? I could either keep on going, try and compete for another 10 years, break Hamilton's records or whatever, or if the car isn't quite so competitive, or he doesn't want to drive for another team, because as he says, like, you know, I don't want to drive for another team, maybe he's looking at what's going on right now with Leclerc at Ferrari and thinking, well, okay, I definitely don't want to drive for Ferrari, so you know, maybe if it's not Red Bull, maybe it's nowhere, right? Maybe it's another class entirely, because of course in 2026 the new engine regulations come through. Red Bull are going to work with Porsche. What does that mean, right? And he's kind of talked about the fact that, okay, less pressure, more fun he would like to have. And he says, okay, like in long distance racing, for example, at some point in the future, there's less pressure there, more fun. That might even be possible during my Formula 1 career, but not this year or the year after that, maybe the next year, right? The 24-hour races look like something interesting to Verstappen. Le Mans, the Spa race, of course, even Daytona, right? Or the 12 hours of Sebring, or like the Bathurst event in Australia, GT3 car though. I've already won that race twice in the simulator, he says. I think I saw this actually, that even before Silverstone, he was like on the simulator, like driving some sort of like endurance event, and was like he went from like 50th to 1st or something over the course of like, I don't know, an hour or two of racing or something kind of crazy like that. So he certainly has the talent, obviously, to go to another racing class. And just because he does that, like this kind of endurance stuff on a regular basis, I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that that is what he will do after going into, well, effectively after retiring from Formula 1. Whether he'll do that soon though, because of course if you look at Nico Rosberg, he was what, 31 when he retired. Like there is a world in which Verstappen competes for 6 more years and then calls it quits if he's not enjoying it or if the car isn't so good. So that's the thing. I think a lot of people are expecting Verstappen to dominate the next few years. That might well be the case based on his talent and the way Red Bull are looking, but like it's far from guaranteed that the records of Schumacher and Hamilton are going to be attainable if he's not, you know, fully committed to the sport. Of course, his thoughts could change over time, but he might do an Alonso and retire, do do something different and then make his return, right? That, of course, is not out of the question. He does actually mention rallying right here because Jos Verstappen, his father, does kind of enjoy rallying, but he says, I don't really want to do that. I think it's too dangerous. Driving with a co-pilot doesn't seem great to me either. I'd rather just be on my own. So interesting stuff, of course, interesting timing actually, just because Ferrari unveiled their kind of World Endurance Championship car for 2023, which doesn't, well, you can't really see all that much of it, but, you know, it's kind of what you might expect it to look like. It would be interesting if in like 2026 or beyond, like we start getting, you know, Verstappen races for Porsche in you know, Le Mans or something, right, and then comes back to F1. It would, yeah, it seems like something he's interested in, right? He's not just a Formula 1 racer, he's interested in like all forms of racing and seems to, well, enjoy doing all that stuff. So definitely a question here, right? And I did see people joking about this actually, that okay, if Verstappen says he might retire in 2028, then Alonso's going to eye up that seat, right? Of course, the joke is really that Alonso's just never going to retire. He said the other day, because Formula 1 pointed out that he's driven the most laps or driven the most distance of any driver in Formula 1 history, and it kind of equates to over a quarter of the way to the moon, and he says, okay, let's try and at least make it halfway to the moon by the time he retires. So it would be kind of funny if in 2028 Alonso's still driving somewhere, and then of course Verstappen retires or something, and then a 50-year-old Alonso says, thank you very much, I'll step into that seat, and well, go from there, I suppose. And just to mention this as we close out, there are now 11 race winners on the grid, Carlos Sainz being added to the list, of course. These are the other 10. Who will be the next? I guess George Russell, your money should probably be on him, but in an incredibly chaotic race, who knows if, you know, even Lando Norris might well have a chance as well. But very much enjoyed your thoughts and all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.